Hey guys, Ron here, and I gotta say, you guys really like it when I talk about the Pokemon I've used in various playthroughs. I mean, at the beginning of the previous two generations, I made Pokemon team videos, and they're both still watched by a ton of people each day, so I would be a complete idiot to not give you guys more of what you want. During the entirety of Generation 7, I was both in college and working on this channel during my free time, so I had no time to play Pokemon. But after graduating and making YouTube my full-time job, Generation 8 came out, and I managed to play a bit more than I used to. I still play Pokemon at a really slow pace because I love to savor each playthrough and avoid Pokemon burnout, so I still only play a maximum of like 2 Pokemon games a year. But because it takes me, on average, half a year to replay a previous Pokemon title, I definitely spend more time with my team than the average Poketuber. So here are the parties I've gone through countless battles with over the last 3 years. And since these are recent playthroughs, the relationships I've built with these Pokemon are still fresh and juicy in my mind. Let's begin in chronological order. The previous video came out at the end of 2019. I just finished my playthrough of Sword and Shield at the time and began anticipating the release of a potential Sinnoh remake. While I've played Pokemon Diamond multiple times, I've never played Pokemon Platinum, so I thought I might as well play through it for the first time to refresh my mind so I could notice all the differences in an eventual remake, which ended up being a mistake since BDSP turned out to be the most faithful remake of them all, and I may have enjoyed them a bit less because I already played a Sinnoh game in the same generation. But I obviously enjoyed my time in Platinum, especially since I started this playthrough in mid-March 2020, so let's just say I had a bit more time to stay indoors and play some Pokemon. The blooming flowers also heightened the whimsical and nostalgic feeling. I had a pretty dope team in Platinum. It was fun trying to diverge from the cliché Sinnoh team. I partially succeeded. My first Pokemon was Cliff the Torterra. Torterra is one of my favorite Pokemon, so I had to inaugurate this special playthrough with one of my favorites. That's why I also trained Lucia the Luxray. Luxray is one of my top 10 favorite Pokemon. A Sinnoh playthrough feels odd without it. Lucia was weird because she had Rivalry instead of Intimidate, which made battles a bit more interesting. She'd be stronger against female opponents, but weaker against males. It added an extra decision to my strategies. Henry the Machamp was next. I just thought Henry was a very masculine name. I've never had a no-guard Machamp before. He never missed. It was awesome. Donna the Honchkrow and her Super Luck was also insane. She'd land critical hits in every battle. Why doesn't everybody use a Honchkrow? She was the Dawn. Next was Kamakiri, the Scizor. Kamakiri means praying mantis in Japanese, by the way. Scyther is one of my favorite Pokemon, but I still love Scizor as well, and always dreamed of using one since I was a child. He was fine, not the best move pool. And finally, since I was 6, in my mind, Milotic was the Pokemon that the strongest of trainers used. It's the most beautiful Pokemon and would complete my team very well, so I spent 2 hours looking for a Feebas in Diamond and traded it over to Platinum. Venus, the Milotic, was pretty sweet. The goddess of beauty. Honestly, one of my most visually pleasing Pokemon teams. These are all such dapper looking Mons, the team of a champion. At this point, I think I finally want to do a challenge run. I've never been a fan of Nuzlocke myself, so I'm not talking about anything as brutal as that. I decided to finally do a mono-type run. Grass type seemed appropriate, and Hoenn not only has some of the best grass types, but is a region I know like the back of my hand, so it wouldn't be too much of a hassle, especially since I'll be playing Alpha Sapphire, so Team Aqua wouldn't be much of a problem against my grass types. But after all, grass types tie for the most weaknesses, so it was fun trying to cover for those flaws. Of course, I started with Sceptile, named the boy Rex cause he's a king, and also looks like a dinosaur. Tito the Ludicolo was a must, both for his ability to learn an ice type move, but for HMs. The dude really covered our butts against ice, fire, and some flying types. I spent an hour with the Dex Nav, one of my favorite features in the entire franchise, finding a Shroomish with the egg move Seed Bomb. Definitely worth it. I named my Breloom Eden, after the garden. You know the one. Then when it was time for a fossil, I obviously had to pick Lileep. I named him Lileep, like a rapper. Yo, what's up, Lileep? My Cradilly was definitely the MVP. It covered many types with its move pool. I've always wanted a cool Cacturn on the team. Now, one of my favorite anime characters, Kakashi from Naruto, has a name that means scarecrow, but I ended up with a female Cacturn, so I named her Rin, Kakashi's friend. My final member was a very useful Gloom named Raffaella, after the Rafflesia plant, which Vileplume is based on. She was way stronger than expected, but I needed a flying type, and wanted to exclusively train Hoenn Pokemon, so Dole the Tropius entered the chat. Dole is one of the leading companies that sells bananas, and I wasn't gonna name him Chiquita. Honestly, very disappointing. I've always loved Tropius and thought it was such a perfect Pokemon to represent the tropical Hoenn, but my Tropius kept on getting knocked out. However, it was during this monotype run that I realized how much I loved TMs. Every time we would find a TM, it was such an event, because it meant I could give one of my Pokemon a move that could cover one of our party weaknesses. It was a very memorable playthrough. I very much encourage monotype runs. But since a grass-type run in Alpha Sapphire wasn't much of a challenge, I decided to finally take the training wheels off and only do set runs from here on out. At the time, the Pokemon game in which I lost the most battles was Ultra Sun and Moon, and since I'm a huge Alola fan and wanted to replay them anyways, I decided to do my first set mode run in Ultra Moon. That means the game doesn't ask me if I want to switch my Pokemon after defeating my opponents. It makes the game way more realistic and strategic. I started with my second favorite starter Pokemon, Decidueye, named him Bo, like the companion to the arrow. Then, after years of warming up to the Pokemon, I trained a Toucanon named Josh. It's just very funny to have such an angry Pokemon named Josh. I loved trying to find opportune times to use Beak Blast. A lot of my Pokemon in this game had fun gimmicks like this. For example, my next Pokemon was Kage, the Zoroark. Kage means shadow in Japanese. One of the few gimmicky Pokemon that are very useful. I had a blast using its illusion ability to fool my opponents. In fact, while in my original playthrough of Ultra Moon, Ultra Necrozma was incredibly challenging, in this new playthrough I simply tricked Necrozma with Zoroark and managed to defeat it in a few minutes. Neptune the Wishy-Washy was next, one of the most unique Pokemon I've ever trained. I traded over a Passimian from my Pokemon Sun, and I was going to name it Tom Brady after the American football player, but my Passimian was a female, so I named it after his wife, Giselle. They ended up getting a divorce the year after I played Ultra Moon, but it worked. And finally, after thinking Alolan Ninetales was the best regional form in existence, I finally got one. I was going to name her Yuki after the snow, but she was a he, so Yukio it was. And what a handsome boy Yukio was. This was definitely my most consistently challenging playthrough. I made sure not to overlevel and kept the game on set mode. It was such a breath of fresh air, losing to every other major boss. I lost a Totem Ribombee like 6 times. I mean, we didn't have any fire, steel, or poison type on the team, so it made sense, but goddamn was it fun. It was a very sassy looking team, such a sly and devious looking party. Definitely one of my all-time favorite playthroughs, followed by one of my least favorites. Brilliant Diamond and Shiny Pearl was not the most fun Pokemon experience I've ever had. Check out my review of the game if you're wondering why, but I still bonded with my team just as much as any other party. In fact, I trained more Pokemon in these games than any other to combat the terrible level curve and implementation of permanent EXP share in the game that wasn't designed for one. I'm a fan of old Gen 4 starters, so I gladly chose Reginald the Empoleon, and once again, Luxray, this time named Or, the Hebrew word for light. Thank God he had Intimidate. I evolved my Roselia into a trusty Roserade named Zahir, which means clear or to shine in Arabic, which makes sense since he evolves via a shiny stone, but also cause in The Legend of Korra, the antagonist Zahir was the leader of the Red Lotus and was once part of the White Lotus, so a flower theme made sense. My 100th Crobat was necessary. I named him Pierce, cause he pierces. Now, originally I wanted to do a poison-type mono run, but it wasn't really doable considering the availability of Pokemon in these games. But I still managed to use a ton of poison types I've always wanted to have, like Toxicroak, I named him Jabs, and Sasori the Drapion. It means scorpion in Japanese. Sasori, my man, was the MVP. He was so tanky. I loved the guy. I already had a Roserade in a previous playthrough, and knew I needed something like an ice type for a certain someone, so I finally got an Abomasnow named Abomasnow. You see, I've always wanted to create a mascot for my channel that would only appear during sponsored segments and sell you products named Abomasnow. It's a fun idea I want to implement in the future. Then I switched my Crobat with Kisame the Garchomp, named after a shark man from Naruto. Very chill dude. Same also means shark in Japanese. The Pokemon I replaced ended up being part of my second team that I used when my main team got overleveled. Team 2 included Lakshmi the Medicham, a Sanskrit name for good luck. Her pure power was very underrated. Never used one until then. A Rampardos named Cranides Nut. There was a character limit. Aramis, the male Gardevoir, since Aramis was the most feminine of the 3 Musketeers, and Dante the Houndoom, after Dante's Inferno. I took my main team to the Pokemon League and challenged Cynthia. Keep in mind that throughout the game, I gave my team herbs, so they wouldn't have max affection and make the battles too easy. It was only a mistake at the end, cause it made Cynthia near impossible. Keep in mind, I'm also in set mode, with multiple poison types, an electric type, and a dragon type and steel type. My ice type was too slow to defeat her Garchomp, who had a Yachi Berry. I think I lost to her about 13 times. It took 3 hours to defeat her. It was the most difficult battle in the entire franchise for me, but I knew I wanted to rematch all the gym leaders and Pokemon League, so I had to get an ace to deal with Cynthia's Garchomp. I unfortunately replaced Jabs with Jet the Togekiss, without whom victory would have been impossible. Some of my least favorite main game battles, but my most favorite late game battles were had in this game, with this team. Then, a few months later, I had one of my favorite Pokemon experiences, Legends Arceus. Even though Decidueye is my second favorite starter, I've never used Samurott in a 3D Pokemon game, and he's my third favorite starter, so say hi to Kiri, the Hisuian Samurott. Kiri means mist and slice in Japanese, so it's very appropriate. Then the third Luxray in today's video, Umber. Arya, the Drifloon, was a unique addition. And then I found a normal Sneasel in a time-space distortion, named her Snizzle. And then to rectify replacing Toxicroak in my previous playthrough, I got Dave the Toxicroak. Definitely an MVP in this team. I do like giving dangerous Pokemon normal human names. And then there was Gooblina, the Hisuian Gudra. I love her. So sweet. I love gentle giants. I replaced Snizzle with a Yanmega named Copter. Whenever I would call him out, I would yell, "Helicopter! Helicopter!" And I knew I needed a Hisuian Arcanine, so I caught one, named him Little Boy, and basically had a 7-man team. I would switch out one of them for an hour or two whenever they were overleveled. It was a great team. Managed to defeat Volo after 3 tries. What's funny is that I didn't get to his second stage of his Giratina until the 3rd time, but thank God my remaining Pokemon was Samurott, who literally defeated Giratina with 10 HP left using a Night Slash for the first time. God, I love Samurott. While waiting for Gen 9 to begin, I decided to replay my favorite Pokemon game, Black 2, back in the spring. I love starting new Pokemon games at the beginning of a new season. This time I borrowed my brother's White 2 so I could experience some of the differences, like how Route 4 is completely distinct. Since I like all the final Gen 5 starters, I decided to choose Ember for once. Did I say Ember? Embor. I named him King. He was a king. I got Nikola the Flaffy, named after Nikola Tesla, then Mocha the Coughing, Lily the Lilligant, Monty the Excadrill, named after the Drillbur that died in my first and final Nuzlocke, which was also in Black 2. I finally acquired a Reuniclus, definitely one of the MVPs. Never knew how strong they were, until now. I named mine Theo, since he looks like a traditional homunculus. I named him after the most famous alchemist in history, Paracelsus, whose full name was Philippus Aureolus Theophrastus Bombastus von Hohenheim. FMA fans rejoice. I replaced Nicola with Electros, named Hector. It just fit. I needed a Surfmon, so Caracosta it was. Uguay was his name, and he was fantastic, and I finally needed a Pokemon to fly with. I didn't want a Swanna, and I used a Sigilyph in my previous Unova playthrough, so I settled for 2 ground types and got Emmet the Golurk. In Jewish mythology, golems would have the word Emet, which means truth, written on them, so that explains the name. It took some time to get used to Emmet, but he ended up being the true MVP during the Pokemon League. I originally lost to Iris, but my second time around, Golurk managed to have insane luck with his Quick Claw and Evasion. He defeated her Hydreigon and Lapras with Drain Punch after dodging her Sing and tanking Surf, and crushed her Aggron and Haxorus with Earthquake while she was setting up. All while his Quick Claw activated multiple times during the most useful moments, like the turn after she healed. He wasn't overleveled either. I was astonished by the luck. And finally we have the present with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Considering how big these games are and the fact that this is a new generation, I tried out a bunch of different Pokemon during the first half of the game, but by the time I got serious, I managed to narrow it down to the following 8. Masquerada was my final starter. I definitely grew fond of it over my playthrough, but I gotta say its Privo, Floragato, is one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. Wooper is too, so I finally used one and cherished my Clodsire. Lokix is incredibly cool, so much so that I kept it on the team even though I wanted the biggest typing pool and already had a dark type. Garganical is funny and strong. I took the opportunity and trained up a Ceruledge. I don't have to tell you how cool it is. Tinkaton was a surprise that took the hearts of fans worldwide. It's very unique and fun. Farigiraf finally gave me a reason to use a Girafarig. I'm glad I found one towards the end. And as soon as I had the chance, Baxcalibur was on my team. It's always exciting when you can bond with a pseudo-legendary. And I hope this video got you excited enough to leave a like and subscribe. Stay tuned for a full review of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet coming pretty soon. Open the description for the links to the t-shirts I made you guys, and my Patreon where you can get cool rewards like seeing my videos days early and discounts on merch. Follow me on Twitter too, that's important. See ya!